The NBA, arguably more than any other professional sports league in America, is a star-driven league led by a movement surrounding the empowerment of these players. We're seeing more big-name players on the move, getting traded and leaving in free agency than we ever saw in prior decades, and whether or not you like to see things like this go down, it's not going anywhere. Whether someone wants to find a better chance to win, maximize their potential earnings by seeking the biggest contract, or simply going to a location that they would like to call home, there's a wide variety of reasons why a player could push to be moved, and this brings us to today's video. Today we'll be discussing 4 star players that I believe will be the next ones to push to be traded in the near future. These are stars that don't seem happy in their current situations and may look for greener pastures as soon as the offseason. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you who are watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first player we'll be discussing today that I believe will be the next to force himself out is Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. The Bradley Beal saga has been going on for years now, and I've discussed my thoughts on the matter several times previously, so when Beal signed his crazy big contract extension with the team this offseason, I was not surprised one bit. For years, Beal has been talking about how much he wants to win and how his focus is on contending, but then simultaneously, he was pledging his allegiance to the Wizards franchise, who are clearly not going to be in contention anytime soon. I predicted that Beal was just waiting around to sign a big money contract extension before requesting a trade, just to lock the money in, and now, less than 1 year after signing said big money contract extension, the rumor mill is swirling regarding his availability, possibly coming on the horizon. In a recent interview, Beal himself said, and I quote, "I'm patient, but there comes a time where you have to be a little selfish and draw a line in the sand for sure. So I have thoughts in my head, but at the same time I stay in the moment." That sure sounds like a guy who is considering taking his talents elsewhere, if you ask me. The notion of him being committed to winning has always been in stark contrast to his simultaneous allegiance to a middling franchise with no real future in sight, so now that he's locked up to a monstrous payday, I would not be surprised whatsoever to see him request a trade this offseason, hoping to land in a team with more solidified talent to work with. The next star player I believe may seek a trade sooner rather than later is Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks. This has not been a very good year for Trae Young due to things that have been apparently going down both on and off the court. The Hawks' future seemed incredibly bright when they made that conference finals run back in 2021, but since then they've crashed back down to reality and it's been looking a bit grim. Trae, to his credit, is absolutely one of the most productive players in the entire league, scoring about 27 points and dishing out about 10 assists per game this year. He individually generates a ton of offense for the Hawks and is without question a great offensive talent, but his style of play is incredibly ball dominant. He doesn't do much off the ball at all, and his defense is pretty horrific, so many around the league have questioned whether or not he's someone who can be a leader on a team with genuine aspirations. According to several reports, he's clashed with each of his last 2 head coaches, which in turn has resulted in both of them being fired. Players in the Hawks locker room have leaked to the media that he's not exactly the easiest to play alongside, and a guy like John Collins has been vocally unhappy in his role there for a while now. The team has tried to supplement him with the help that he needs by acquiring someone like DeJounte Murray to pair with him in the backcourt, but the team has not made any progress from a year ago as a result of it. There's a lot factoring into this situation, such as Trae's unwillingness to adapt his game and the team's inability to compete defensively with someone as flawed on that end as Trae is, so they may be reaching a boiling point where the two sides agree to mutually part ways. The next star player who may be on the brink of a trade request in the near future is Karl-Anthony Towns of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Towns is a former #1 overall draft pick, and since then, he's been the cornerstone of the Timberwolves franchise. Towns has blossomed into one of the best and most talented big men in the entire league offensively, and can shoot the ball as well as any big man the league has ever seen, but his tenure in Minnesota hasn't exactly resulted in much overall. The Wolves have made the playoffs just twice in his 8 seasons there, and they lost in the first round both of those years, so he is still in search of his first taste of actual playoff success. This offseason, after getting back to the postseason last year, the Wolves finally got aggressive and made a big splash by going out and trading for multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year winner Rudy Gobert in hopes of solidifying their defense and making that leap to contender status. But to put it simply, that has not been the result of that move. Last season, the Timberwolves were the 7 seed in the West. This year, they're currently in 8th place in the conference with a 500 record. On top of that, adding another center to the team's lineup has only made Towns' life more uncomfortable because he then has had to play more power forward, and his production has suffered in this new role, as he's putting up the fewest points he's put up in a season since his rookie year, while shooting worse than he ever has. He has admittedly been injured for the last few months, but even when he was healthy, things just did not seem to be working with the 2-center lineup experiment. Teams around the NBA are also reportedly monitoring his situation closely because they know that he might become available in the summer, and oftentimes, where there's smoke, there's fire. And finally, the last star player we'll be discussing today that I think may be pushing for a move soon is Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors' days as a title contender seem to be over as currently constructed, and their focus could very well shift to the future as soon as next season if their season this year continues to be as middling as it's been, with them currently in 9th place in the Eastern Conference standings. After drafting Scottie Barnes and watching him win the Rookie of the Year award last year, they made it clear that their plan is to build around him, and according to reports, have made him virtually untouchable in trade talks. If Barnes is the one at the center of their rebuild, then the fact that he and Siakam play the same position is a clash of interest, especially when Siakam is a win-now all-star caliber guy and is on a completely different timeline than Barnes is. Every report around the time of the trade deadline this year also seemed to indicate that the Raptors would be the ones most active in trade talks, and in the end, the only trade they made was to acquire Jakob Poeltl's expiring contract without moving any of their most valuable pieces. So with Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. both set to hit free agency this summer, along with OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam going into their last year of their current contracts next year, they missed their opportunity to maximize their return for those players, but Siakam still holds the most value of the bunch. Next year, the rebuild seems inevitable too, so they'll once again have plenty of teams interested in Siakam's services, and Siakam is going to want to win, so it'll be in the best interest of both parties for him to be on the move and for the Raptors to get as many assets for him as possible. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these stars and where they could be traded to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.